If you're a model railroad enthusiast, stay tuned. Up next, I'll talk with Roger Carp about Lights, Camera, Lionel Trains, a photo history of an American icon. It's a fascinating look at the role photography played in documenting and promoting this iconic toy that has captured the imagination of generations. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Roger Carp earned a Ph.D. in American history before going on to work for Classic Toy Trains magazine, where he's been the senior editor for 20 years. He's written or edited more than 20 books and publications about Lionel, including The World's Greatest Toy Maker, The Art of Lionel Trains, and Collectible Lionel Classics, just to name a few. He joins us to talk about Lights, Camera, Lionel Trains, a photo history of an American icon. Roger, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Dan, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
In the introduction to the book, it's noted that you were first introduced to Lionel Trains as a youngster, as a child, and it stayed with you your entire life. Why do you think it's had such a big impact on your life?
It was a wonderful toy that quickly became part of our family life. And that's a theme in my book, that very quickly my older sister was involved playing with the trains with me. My parents were. And that stayed with me. I really felt changed by getting this gift. And even though my education took me far afield, when I started working for Classic Toy Trains magazine, I remembered those feelings and wanted to explore them with other people in the hobby, as well as just the former employees at Lionel that I met in the early 90s who were elderly, but I began talking with them about the role of family in promoting these trains, and their eyes lit up and they said, that's exactly what we were doing. We were making trains for kids that they would then share with their families.
Well, before we talk about some specifics from this book, give us a brief overview. What are people going to find here?
There are more than 250 photographs, and they'll recognize some celebrities from the past, Roy Campanella, Joe DiMaggio, Betty Grable, Harry Belafonte, Rita Hayworth. And then I think they'll also love seeing families, ordinary families from across North America. They will see families playing with trains. And I think, like me, once people see these photos, they're going to start asking questions beyond the obvious, what's that train? But why are we seeing celebrities? Why is Joe DiMaggio on the floor with the train? Why would Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall have made toy trains his favorite hobby? Why would Count Basie, when he's off the road, like Nat King Cole, like Frank Sinatra, been playing with trains? And I think it's going to bring back some great memories. And once it brings back memories, I think people are going to start talking among the generations. And that's my goal. I want people to see the photos and to start reminiscing and talking and thinking about the important role that toys have played in the lives of all of us.
Well, Lionel Trains is celebrating 125 years, so they've been around for multiple generations. Take us back to the beginning. How did the company get started?
A great entrepreneur and marketing genius named Joshua Lionel Cowan gave his middle name to this new company. He was as fascinated with the potential of electricity as we today are fascinated by AI. Someone like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs saw the potential of computers. That's what Cowan was doing with electric trains. And he brought it into homes across North America and then began to see how boys and girls loved the trains, but they loved them even more when they could play with them with parents and grandparents. And so it was really the marketing kept catching up with and then going ahead of where people were. Cowan and Lionel had fantastic engineers working to create dynamic, innovative locomotives, and what we call accessories, operating items. And so they were trying to get families to keep every year playing with these trains at Christmas and then adding to what they had. So every home would have its own Lionel system, its network of a little railroaded home. Families loved it. And this was, again, the marketing genius at Lionel. The constant innovation is why this business has lasted 125 years. What a remarkable achievement for any business, but especially one in the field of toys where tastes of kids, their interests change so rapidly.
That is the amazing thing about this, is the interest has stayed strong generation after generation. I think one of the things, and you point out, is, yeah, it can be for kids, but it's also for adults. So it's something that the family can share together. And I remember as a child, I didn't have an electric train set, but I knew kids that did. In fact, one of my acquaintances, they had a whole room dedicated to it. And reflecting back on that, I realized, well, that was probably a lot of the father's interest in making that happen. But it was an amazing setup with lots of accessories, lots of scenery and buildings, etc. So they're actually sort of creating little nostalgic worlds through this hobby.
Very much. They're creating their own world. That was the great thing. Lionel encouraged kids and families to dream, to come up with a railroad system in a basement, a bedroom, an attic, and then over time build it. And in the course of doing that, kids would play with their parents. They would see how their parents love to relax and interact with them. And everyone shared skills. Fathers and grandfathers and would share carpentry skills, electrical skills, and kids would learn how to be better artists. People saw talents in themselves they never knew were there. And this was why Lionel said, our trains are an investment in happiness.
Well, this book details the role that photography played in promoting the Lionel Trains. And I want to come back to something you started out with. It's about all these celebrities that you'll see pictures of. And I'm sure they each have different reasons for loving these trains. But what can you tell us about some of their attraction to the trains?
As you might imagine, some celebrities like Joe DiMaggio or Bill Russell, the basketball great, they had Lionel Trains as adults because their families had been too poor to get them a train when they were growing up. But kids everywhere knew about Lionel Trains as status symbols among their peers. And so these celebrities wanted them as adults. Some celebrities, like Nat King Cole, wanted trains to interact and play with their children and grow closer. There were some like Rita Hayworth, Betty Grable. Why would studios have posed them with an electric train? Because it made them seem more approachable, more, I want to use the word normal, but they were just like everyone else. And the train never made them look silly. It never made them look childish. Instead, it made them seem just like all of us. And they clearly were having so much fun. The smiles on starlets, on baseball players, on politicians, they're genuine. They're really relaxed. They're having fun. And that's what Lionel promised.
Another thing you point out in a chapter of the book is the role that model trains had in Hollywood films, that especially during a particular era of filmmaking, they showed up quite often.
They served a great role. As you can imagine, in so many movies, there would be an older man who was stuffy, distant, cold, and then he got an electric train. And all of a sudden, the real soul of that man appeared. He was warm, happy, playful. So trains did a great job doing that. There's a fascinating movie from 1959 called The World, the Flesh, and the Devil with Harry Belafonte, where he is He thinks he is the last person on Earth. So what does he do to survive? He's holed up in an apartment. He's got his guitar and he's got his Lionel Trains. He's content. And so it's just different roles. And again, it just trains in movies would bring adults and kids together.
And you also point out that occasionally trains would show up in the courtroom. Tell us about how that came about.
Lionel Trains were used in a famous case in the early 30s. Why? Because the lawyers needed to show how a train, that some people that had ridden on top of a freight train, they were being accused of having attacked someone. The lawyer wanted to prove that wasn't possible. You can't bring a big size train into a courtroom, but you could bring Lionel Trains in, and that's exactly what happened. So they're making history in a fascinating way that I think even Lionel was surprised, but they provided the trains. They wanted to help the attorney.
One of the fascinating aspects of this book is you do have sort of behind-the-scenes photographs of, where the founders of Lionel, but also where it's manufactured, kind of how they put this all together. So tell us a bit about that section of the book.
I was very fortunate in the early 1990s when I started at Classic Toy Trains that a number of former employees, salespeople, engineers, model makers were still alive, and they had wonderful stories of working at Lionel from the 19-teens into the 1970s. And very fortunately for me, they had personal photographs that they shared with me. Both it might be scenes at the factory that helped me get a better sense of how toy trains were manufactured, but it was also personal ones, weddings, family life, Christmas scenes in their homes. And it just showed this was a wonderful place to work. And they were thrilled to be making these toys because they knew it brought families together. But they were very proud, and they pointed out to me, we were making more than toys. We were making electric appliances made to last and bring joy and help out families for a generation or more.
As we mentioned, Lionel Trains celebrating 125 years in existence, and the nature of toys have changed a lot since then. But why do you think that we still have so many train enthusiasts, Lionel and other, sort of miniature train enthusiasts today, when there's so many other distractions for people's time?
I think people want to discover in themselves, what kind of skills do I have? And model railroading, especially with Lionel Trains, lets you do that in the most entertaining, enjoyable manner. Carpentry skills, electric, artistic skills, while you're having fun with friends, neighbors, family members. Those are eternal aspects of what makes this hobby so great, why Lionel has continued to innovate and come up with phenomenal trains, lighting effects, sound effects greater than ever before. So it's both the innovation and the tradition that make this hobby so valuable, so fun. And again, this is why this book is a perfect Father's Day gift, because this hobby brings parents, grandparents, fathers, kids together.
To learn more, the book is Lights, Camera, Lionel Trains, A Photo History of an American Icon by Roger Carp. Roger, thank you for talking with me today.
Dan, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much. My book is available on Amazon and projectroar.com. Lights, Camera, Lionel Trains, A Photo History of an American Icon.
If you'd like to purchase Lights, Camera, Lionel Trains, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.